My name is Mikey McCoy. I had the unique honor, blessing, and privilege of a lifetime to not only call Charlie a precious friend, mentor, but to travel with him literally everywhere.
The moment Candace Owens hinted that Mikey McCoy could be tangled up in something dark and secretive, people froze. Candace isn't the type to toss around heavy claims just for clicks. She only speaks like that when something deep inside her says, this doesn't add up. And this time she wasn't guessing. She'd seen something that shook her to the core, and according to her, it all started when she reviewed the footage from the day Charlie Kirk was struck. But here's the twist. She didn't focus on the suspect or the crowd. Nope. Her eyes went straight to Mikey McCoy. Not his statements, not his heartbreak, not even his position as chief of staff, but his reaction in that crucial moment. And honestly, it's the kind of thing that makes your chest tighten just watching it. Candace slowed the clip down and pointed to the exact second Charlie fell. And right there, just feet away, Mikey lifts a phone to his ear almost instantly, unlike it was automatic. He didn't even glance back or look shocked. It was as if he already knew what was happening. That one move left everyone speechless. But then came the part that made even longtime followers stop scrolling. Pastor Rob McCoy, Mikey's own father, know for a fact also that one of his first phone calls, it wasn't just 2 phone calls he made 3. Because he also called Elizabeth McCoy, his wife, who screamed at the office. Okay, and so we're not being told the truth. That's what I'm getting at. We are not being told the sensible truth.
The minute Charlie was shot, he called me, says, Dad, Charlie's been shot in the neck. Please call every pastor and pray. I said, okay, son. He has wits about him. He was just directing. He had blood all over him.
My friend, Mikey McCoy, whom I talked to today, is getting death threats. Went on stage after the incident and told his congregation that Mikey called him the very minute Charlie went down. He even claimed his son had blood on his shirt. Yet in the footage, there's not a single drop anywhere on him. Something here just doesn't line up, and fans are starting to question why. There wasn't a single trace of blood, none at all. And when people checked the footage against the pastor's timeline, the phone call didn't match up either. Right then, Candace Owens started digging deeper. And what she found next made everything way more complicated. 2 major red flags jumped out. Mikey's strange, almost robotic reaction during the moment. And his own father's story that didn't line up with what cameras showed. Something about that combo just screamed, this isn't right. But hold up. But that was only the start. The second Candace pulled that thread, she uncovered something much darker. It involved Pastor Rob McCoy himself and a man he personally defended straight from his own pulpit. She revealed that Pastor McCoy had allowed a convicted offender, someone found guilty of a serious crime involving a child, to work around minors in his congregation. He, in less than a second, does something that I find to be quite strange. He puts his phone to his ear and he begins a conversation. Brought it forward into Rob's church and said, it's absurd that you are allowing him to be around youth, despite his record. And later, that same man appeared on the pastor's own podcast, claiming he was wrongfully accused. Now, to be clear, that alone isn't proof of any conspiracy, but it does make people raise an eyebrow. Because when a leader publicly defends someone with that kind of record, it naturally makes folks wonder what else is being hidden and who else they might be protecting behind closed doors. That's where Candace started connecting the bigger dots. She wasn't talking random guesses, she was tracing patterns. And those patterns didn't look like coincidences anymore, they looked like coordination. Because Charlie Kirk wasn't the only person in that circle who met a tragic end under mysterious circumstances. That's when her theory started to shift from weird reaction to this might have been planned out. At first, people thought Candace was just being dramatic or reacting emotionally. But once she laid out the full timeline, showing frame by frame what really happened, even her critics started saying, wait, something doesn't add up here. After all, when someone right beside you gets struck, any normal reaction is fear, shock, panic, maybe diving for safety. But what Mikey did didn't match any of that. Every day that goes on, it feels to me like Turning Point is engaged in a cover-up. And there's no other way to say this. There's no other ways. I don't care who at Turning Point tweets. I literally do not care. I will breathe fire on all of you. I know how these events work. And put your phone to an ear in 834 seconds. It looks smooth, practiced almost like he was expecting it. And once Candace pointed that out, she didn't stop there. She went straight for the top. The Turning Point leadership, the very organization Charlie had built with his own hands. Candace claimed she felt something was off inside that group, that there might be more going on behind the scenes than anyone wanted to admit. That's not the kind of claim you make just to get headlines. That's something you say when your instincts are screaming that the story being told to the public doesn't match the truth. And then came the part that left everyone silent. The detail that made even her most loyal followers freeze in disbelief. Candace Owens wasn't holding back. She straight up demanded Mikey McCoy's phone records. She called it nonsense that transparency could hurt the investigation, and honestly, she had a valid point. When the nation loses one of its loudest and most powerful conservative voices, the last thing people want to hear is we can't release that yet. That kind of secrecy only makes things look worse. Right around that same time, the internet started zeroing in on Mikey's body language after the moment. Video showing Tyler Robinson walking into the sheriff's office for the state of Utah. We would certainly hope that this video is available. The response: our office does not have any applicable records responsive to this request, as the surveillance footage is no longer available after the 30-day ret. And it was strange to say the least. He didn't look back, didn't freeze in confusion, didn't seem scared or shocked. Instead, he calmly turned away, phone pressed to his ear, moving like someone following quiet instructions. It was eerie to watch, too calm for what had just happened. At first, I wanted to believe it was just shock, maybe panic taking over. You know, that weird numbness when your mind blanks out. But then Candace mentioned something that made everyone's stomach drop. She said Mikey appeared to lift his phone and start a call before the shot happened, not after. Candace even broke down the numbers. According to her timing, he raised the phone roughly 4 to 5 seconds before the shot, putting it to his ear less than a second before the sound echoed through the crowd. Think about that. Less than 1 second. That's the kind of timing that makes the entire room go silent. Because if that detail is true, we're no longer talking about a reflex. We're talking about someone who might have known what was coming, and she wasn't the only one who saw it. Multiple online analysts, commentators, and independent investigators replayed that clip frame by frame, and they all spotted the same unsettling detail. When you line up those two moments, the pre-shot phone lift and the cold instant walk away, it stops feeling like coincidence. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean Mikey did anything violent himself or that he was directly tied to whoever carried it out. The shooter, or the alleged shooter. You think they're apathy? Of course, they're patchy. I mean, come on. This was so dumb. It's so he wasn't even on campus that day. I think we know why Kash Patel is out, right? I mean, I read this, checked it, verified it, and I just want to know why, Charlie. I want to know why. The decision was made to murder Charlie Kirk, a decision that very clearly had to be approved by Charlie's friends. Do not care. I will breathe fire on all of you. I just said had a vivid dream this weekend, and Charlie came to me and he told me that he was betrayed. But it does raise serious questions about what role, if any, he played in those crucial minutes leading up to the moment everything changed. But just when things couldn't get any heavier, Candace dropped another bombshell that took the theory to an even darker level. She revealed that Charlie had told people in a private group chat that he planned to step back from a major cause. And guess who was part of that very chat? Mikey McCoy himself. That revelation hit like a thunderclap, making everyone wonder if Charlie's shift in direction had anything to do with what followed. That revelation right there changed everything. The fact that Charlie Kirk had told people in a private chat that he was planning to pull back from the pro-Israel movement, and that Mikey McCoy was sitting in that very same chat, flipped the entire narrative on its head. It wasn't just about loyalty anymore. It was about timing, motive, and who knew what before the chaos broke loose. Candace Owens said that once she saw those chat logs, the pattern started to make sense. Charlie was preparing to make a shift, maybe even a public statement, and that kind of move would have shaken up a lot of people in powerful positions. He was a figure who held serious influence, not just politically, but financially too. Every time he changed his stance, it sent ripples through donors, organizations, and backroom circles. So if he was planning to take a new direction and someone knew about it before the world did, then suddenly the coincidences around him didn't feel random anymore. Candace explained that Charlie had been questioning things privately for months. He was reportedly feeling pressure from people inside his own circle, and that pressure wasn't friendly. Some insiders said he was told to stay on script and not wander off message. But Charlie was never the kind of man to sit quietly when something didn't feel right. He wanted independence, and independence can make enemies real fast. Now, the moment Candace brought this up, the internet exploded. People started asking who else was in that chat. Screenshots began floating around online, and though no one could verify them officially, they painted a picture that made chills run down your spine. There were names, familiar ones, people close to the organization, people who had everything to lose if Charlie went public with his doubts. Then came the next wild twist. Candace claimed that Mikey wasn't just a bystander in that group chat. She said he might have been the one who tipped others off about what Charlie was planning. And if that's true, then everything about his calm reaction that day suddenly looks a whole lot different. It's not panic, it's control. This part is where things start feeling straight out of a political thriller. Candace's sources allegedly told her that Charlie had drafted a private message days before the shooting, outlining his intention to pull out of certain causes and refocus his energy on domestic issues. That message was meant to go public later that week, but it never did. It stayed buried, and the person who last accessed it before Charlie's phone went silent was reportedly someone from the inner team. You can guess who everyone thought that was. Candace went on to point out that the more she connected the timing, the stranger it looked. Charlie's phone activity, Mikey's phone movements, and the last confirmed chat messages all lined up too neatly to ignore. She said it felt like a script, not a tragedy. And if there's one thing Candace knows how to do, it's trace inconsistencies until they start making noise. Meanwhile, social media turned into a wildfire. Fans began dissecting every clip, every angle, every timestamp from that day. TikTok threads, Reddit boards, and live stream breakdowns flooded the internet, and almost everyone was noticing the same thing. Mikey's composure, no panic, no hesitation, no emotion, just quiet, efficient movement while everyone else was in chaos. People who used to defend him started to step back, saying something like, "Look, we don't know what's going on, but this doesn't look normal." Others doubled down, insisting he was simply in shock or following safety protocol. But here's the problem. If that's the case, why does every witness recall different details? Some said he was already on his phone before anything happened. Others said he disappeared into the crowd seconds after. No one's story perfectly matches the footage, and that's what's driving everyone crazy. Candace then took it even further, saying that certain parts of the event footage had gone missing, or at least weren't being made public. She claimed that a secondary camera, one that would have captured everything from behind the stage, suddenly malfunctioned that same day. When she asked who handled the equipment, guess what name popped up again? Tyler Burr, another Turning Point insider. According to Candace, that's where the missing SD card story started. And this is where the dominoes started falling fast. Because if there was missing video, missing messages, and a timeline that doesn't fit, that's not an accident, that's a pattern. Candace told her followers that this wasn't about one person being shady. It was about a chain of people protecting something bigger. Every piece of evidence that should have cleared the confusion seemed to vanish or get locked away behind official investigation excuses. Now, around this point, a few brave whistleblowers began reaching out. Anonymous messages, insider leaks, some of it unverifiable, but still enough to make people think twice. A few even claimed that Turning Point had ordered an internal audit right before everything went down. Candace said that the audit targeted financial discrepancies and that Mikey was supposed to be part of that review team. If that's true, then it adds yet another layer because it means Charlie and Mikey might not have just been dealing with ideological tension, but money tension too. Imagine it. A powerful organization under audit, the founder questioning the direction, and the chief of staff caught between loyalty and survival. That's the kind of pressure that can make people do strange things. Candace even mentioned that certain donors began distancing themselves after the incident. A few major figures allegedly pulled funding quietly, saying the optics were too messy. Behind closed doors, the brand that once symbolized unity started cracking. You could see it in how leadership handled interviews, short answers, forced smiles, and the same repeated line, "We're cooperating fully with authorities." But to the public, that wasn't enough. Transparency had become the demand of the day, and people wanted names, not statements. Candace knew this, and she leaned in hard. She said, "If you claim to stand for truth, then prove it. Show the phone logs, release the full footage, stop hiding behind PR walls." Her words hit like a hammer, echoing across social platforms, forcing the organization to respond, even if just to deny her claims. And through all of this, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just about one tragedy anymore. This was about trust, power, and what happens when too many secrets start colliding. By the time Candace finished laying out her findings, the conversation had changed completely. What started as speculation had turned into a public demand for accountability. People weren't whispering anymore, they were demanding answers. And at the center of all of it, like a shadow that won't go away, was Mikey McCoy. Every move he made, every timeline connected to him, every missing piece of footage, all roads somehow led back to the same person. It doesn't prove guilt, but it sure doesn't look clean either. And that's when people realized this story wasn't close to over. Because if Candace was right, if Charlie had warned people he was stepping away and those around him knew, then maybe the truth isn't buried in rumors. Maybe it's sitting right there in those unreleased messages waiting for the world to finally see what really happened. Pastor Rob McCoy, that's where things took a sharp turn. This was the point when Candace Owens started talking about motives, the why behind all of this, and whether someone inside that circle might have panicked about what Charlie Kirk was planning to reveal. Up until now, it all sounded suspicious. But once she laid out what came next, the missing footage, the mysterious whistleblower email, and her claim about who the real shooter likely was, the story stopped feeling like gossip and started sounding like something carefully set up. But before she even got into the so-called cult connections, Candace pointed out something that changed the entire tone of the investigation. This next part wasn't based on rumors, feelings, or assumptions. It was documented, verified, and cross-checked by multiple people. And once you hear it, you'll understand why she stopped calling this a tragedy and started calling it a setup. Candace revealed that there was zero surveillance footage, absolutely none showing Tyler Robinson turning himself in. Not a single clip, not blurry footage, not a corrupted file, not even a camera pointed in the wrong direction. Just nothing for a moment that major, that public, that high profile, that's unheard of. Think about it. This isn't 1980, it's 2025. Every county building in America has cameras inside, outside, and around every corner. The idea that someone connected to a high-profile incident could walk into a sheriff's office and there'd be no video of it. Impossible. And yet, that's exactly what happened here. That was the moment Candace said she went from suspicious to convinced that something or someone was being protected. Because as she reminded everyone, a suspect in a national case doesn't just stroll into custody unrecorded. That's not how modern law enforcement operates. Then it got even more bizarre when reporters and investigators started filing requests for the footage. The answers they got were all over the place. One department said the video didn't exist. Another said it was deleted by accident. Then someone else said it was under review and couldn't be released. A few even claimed there had been a 30-day purge cycle, meaning the data was automatically erased. Every time someone asked for clarification, the story shifted again. Deleted, missing, not found under review. It changed depending on who asked and when. That kind of confusion doesn't happen naturally. And as Candace pointed out, when an explanation keeps changing, that's not a mistake. And that's damage control. Someone's covering tracks, not telling the truth. So now she's looking at a situation where the supposed suspect appears out of nowhere with no surveillance trail. Key figures around Charlie acted completely out of sync. A pastor's story doesn't match the video evidence. And that same pastor once defended a convicted predator on his own podcast. All those details stacked together start forming a picture, and it isn't pretty. Then came the line that made her audience freeze mid-scroll. Candace said Tyler wasn't even on campus that day. That one sentence hit the internet like a lightning bolt. Now she made it clear she wasn't declaring it as official fact. But the reason she said it wasn't random speculation. She said she'd seen enough evidence to show that Tyler's timeline didn't match up with the shooter's. His car location, his phone data, and even witness statements didn't line up. It all looked less like the behavior of a gunman and more like the setup of a fall guy. Candace said this was when the story stopped being about confusion and started looking like choreography. Because if someone is being framed, especially inside a high-powered network, it usually means there's a motive, a message, and a level of coordination that doesn't come from amateurs. She broke it down in her usual direct style. When a cover story looks too clean, it's because someone cleaned it. And that's exactly how this case was beginning to look. Then came the whistleblower email, the moment that changed everything. Candace opened it live during her broadcast. You could see her posture change instantly. Normally, she's fiery, quick to debate, unshakable. But as she scrolled through that email, something shifted. Her tone softened, her voice slowed, and you could tell whatever she was reading wasn't just speculation. It was heavy. She paused for a full 10 seconds before speaking. Viewers said you could feel the tension through the screen. Then slowly she said, "This isn't about politics anymore." Her eyes stayed locked on the page, and she took a breath before adding, "This email changes everything." At first, she didn't read the full message. She said she wanted to verify parts of it first, but what she did reveal made everyone in her comment section lose it. The message reportedly came from someone who claimed to have worked with Turning Point security contractors, a person who had access to internal communication systems the day everything went down. According to Candace, that person alleged that an order was given to reset certain camera systems hours before the event, an order that supposedly came from someone inside the leadership circle, the same circle Mikey McCoy was a part of. Candace said she didn't want to jump to conclusions, but she couldn't ignore that the timing lined up perfectly with when those malfunctioning cameras stopped recording. She even mentioned that the email contained internal timestamps that matched the missing video window, proving that the cameras were deliberately shut off, not broken. Her followers flooded the chat with disbelief. Thousands of comments pouring in. "This can't be real. Are they serious? How deep does this go?" It was chaos online, and through all of it, Candace kept her composure. But you could see it in her face. This time she wasn't angry, she was disturbed. She said, "If this is true, then we're not dealing with negligence and we're dealing with intent." That statement hit like a thunderclap because intent means planning. And planning means this wasn't some random tragedy. It was something structured, layered, and possibly executed by people who knew exactly what they were doing. From that moment on, Candace stopped treating it as an emotional topic. She started treating it like a case, piece by piece, timeline by timeline. She told her viewers she'd start verifying the whistleblower's claims through independent channels, not trusting anyone connected to the organization. And that's when she dropped the final detail of the night, the one that tied everything together. She said that whoever sent that email also included one chilling line at the end. He was never supposed to die there. That single sentence sent shivers down everyone's spine because it meant someone somewhere knew what was supposed to happen that day, and something went wrong. The look on Candace's face said it all, and this wasn't gossip anymore. This was an unraveling plan, and the deeper she dug, the more it felt like the truth was buried under layers of silence that someone was desperate to protect. Candace Owens didn't hold back. She claimed the FBI, Secret Service, and even the DEA might have been tied to whatever Charlie Kirk discovered before his passing. That's not something you say lightly, especially when you're talking about one of the most influential conservative figures in the country. She didn't read the entire whistleblower email on camera, but what she did say hinted at something way bigger, a network connected to blackmail, trafficking, and political control overseas. The silence after that moment said everything. Missing footage, no record of the suspect's arrival, stories that don't match, and Mikey's calm reaction. None of it feels random. Pastor Rob McCoy defending a convicted offender, the false details, the missing video, it's a pattern. Then Candace said something that gave everyone chills. She called it a hire for murder cult, describing how closed groups use religion or politics as covers to protect each other while silencing threats from the inside. And when she connected that pattern to both Mikey and Pastor McCoy, the coincidences stopped feeling like coincidences. Candace ended her message powerfully. We can't live in a world where governments protect offenders and silence truth-tellers. That wasn't just emotion, it was a warning. Because if Charlie really uncovered something big and was betrayed by people close to him, this might not be an isolated event at all. So what do you think? Was Mikey McCoy just in the wrong place or part of something much bigger hiding behind power and faith? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, share it, and don't forget to subscribe. We're breaking down the hospital timeline next, and you won't want to miss it.